Hello again, everybody. Live from Midtown Manhattan. We're joined now by Noel Thompson. You know Noel, of course, is one of the big movers and shakers in the sport. He's a guy that's helped to affect change in the sport when we needed him the most. When Olympic wrestling was challenged, he traveled so many miles, literally around the world, in defense of the sport. He joins us now from Midtown. Noel, welcome back. How are you?
Thank you for having me, Scott. It's always a pleasure to be on your show.
I have to talk to you about some things I'm hearing, and pardon me for hitting these out of left field, as it were. But USA Wrestling, you were part of the USA Wrestling women's team as the leader. Most recently, Kira Berry has taken over that position. How did that all take place?
Well, I think the team leader position is a yearly position. So, 2013, I was the United States Olympic team leader. And I think, one of the things I think is very important that women are able to lead women. So it was a great platform in 2013, I think, of helping the women garner two more Olympic weight classes and also helping the women, utilizing the women as a platform to help us save Olympic wrestling. I think a lot of my good work for the women has been done in terms of creating the most innovation in the sport since 2004. Since the women have been in the Olympic Games. So it's time to move on to and move on to greener pastures in the sense of having women lead women, which is Kira Berry. I think she will do a fantastic job, as obviously she's part of Beat the Streets New York, and we work very close together. And that will help the women, in a sense, to have a true woman figure that continues to strengthen women's wrestling in the United States.
Kara Berry, of course, taking over as a women's team leader. We're talking with Noel Thompson. USA Wrestling's board could only get stronger with the addition of you. I understand you're up for a position on the USA Wrestling board in August. Is that true?
That's correct. So I decided to put my name in the hat. I think, the one thing I've always learned about in terms of creating change, in order to create change, you have to be involved. And by being involved, it's going to help to continue to create innovative ideas to be able to drive USA Wrestling to the next level where it needs to go. I think, it's a great example of what we did with CPAL last year. As a Committee of Preservation of Olympic Wrestling came together, when you bring a lot of different minds and different people and different ways of thinking, now all of a sudden you create a marketing campaign and the energy around the sport, which people embrace globally. And I think, at home domestically, we have to continue to do that. We have to continue to have new voices involved in the sport. And if you stop innovating, you obviously don't exist anymore. So, obviously that was a great reason for us to kind of create the organizations we did to help save Olympic wrestling last year. So, I want to continue to stay true to that process.
Noel Thompson of Thompson Global joins us from Midtown in New York. I want to set the stage for my next series of questions, if I can. You were born in Kingston, Jamaica. Is that correct?
That's correct.
In 1985, if my notes are correct. So for 5 years of your life, you are in Kingston, Jamaica, so that is the land of your birth. Then you moved to the United States. Talk to me about your education from that point and how you ended up in Hofstra.
Yeah, so I moved to the United States in 1985. I went to pre-K and kindergarten in Kingston, Jamaica. Actually, my dad was Bob Marley's bodyguard in Kingston, Jamaica, and the President and Prime Minister Norman Manley, which the Kingston Airport is named after, bodyguard as well. And then I moved to the United States. I moved to Freeport, Long Island, where I met legendary wrestling coach Terry Hayes, who's also a Hall of Famer, and Vince Waro, who is a FILA Hall of Famer, actually, and started wrestling at my high school and sat on the board of National Wrestling Hall of Fame. And, from there, got involved in wrestling, became very good at the sport and really excelled in high school and college and winning titles and really got involved in the administrative side, probably because a lot of what the two Hall of Famers that kind of took me under their wing very early on in the sport, who were pioneers themselves. And I find myself in a very lucky and fortunate position to have such great people around like them in the past.
And of course, we're talking about the late great Vince Saguaro, who was perhaps one of the most educated and informed of officials and coaches as well. But what an impact he had on our sport. We're talking again with Noel Thompson, Thompson Global, from his offices in Midtown. So understanding how you're established as far as when you were born, where you were born, then it makes it a little easier for me to understand why you're the Secretary General of Wrestling for the entire country of Jamaica.
Yeah, I mean, it's an incredible journey, as I say. Coming from Kingston and then moving to the United States with my mom, and now being able to give back philanthropically and give back, sweat equity in the sense of my time to the nation of Jamaica. I think after, working hard with, Fila and Analalovich and CPAL crew to help, preserve our sport, I think the biggest thing, what I've learned from that process of, 17 countries, 100,000 miles, and a vote in Argentina, is that we have to continue to grow wrestling around the world. And, this year, the agenda moved from, all right, we saved the sport. Now how do we strengthen the sport? And to strengthen the sport, we need more soldiers. We need more voices. We need more people. We need more enthusiasm. We need more marketing. And you have to grow wrestling to keep wrestling. And not only keep wrestling, to strengthen wrestling. So one country which I have an affinity to, which where I was born, which has some of the greatest Olympic athletes, of all time. I think in terms of world and Olympic medals combined, the only country ahead of Jamaica is the United States of America, and it's a little island in all medals for Olympic and world medals. So that means there's a lot of track runners. There's a lot of track and field events. This is what that means. So to have the oldest sport in the world with a nation, which wrestling is the newest introduction to that nation. It was obviously fitting, just with my involvement with Beat the Streets in New York. It's a very similar kind of program of helping the kids get off the streets and providing wrestling as a platform to be better human people and citizens of not only of Jamaica but of the world. And any way we could spread the word of wrestling globally is great for wrestling. It's great for America. It's great for Fila. It's great for Russia. It's great for all the different nations that are the partners, strategic partners around the world.
Well, coming up, obviously the vote for the USA Wrestling Board in August, and then we have the World Championship set for September in Tashkent, Uzbekistan, and there will be a vote for the FILA Bureau. You've been selected as a candidate to run for the International Federation, FILA, the global governing body of our sport, as the member or the voting member from Jamaica. Now, as I understand it, the Bureau members worldwide total 23. Your vote could be integral. Your participation could be integral in the success and the future growth of this sport. How did this become possible? How did you become selected as a candidate to run for FILA?
Well, first you have to be involved in leadership on the executive level within the country you're a part of. And then from there, your involvement in the sport and the things and merits that you've added to the sport come into account of you being selected by FILA to be a possible candidate. Obviously, FILA is the highest governance of wrestling around the world. They're our international federation. They are the only organization that interfaces with the IOC directly. Every other organizations or NGBs only interface. So, example, USA Wrestling interfaces with the USOC, which is the national governing body for USA Wrestling. When you interface globally, the IOC, the International Olympic Committee, interfaces with FILA. It's a very it's a prestigious opportunity to be able to pursue, and one that I think that it's the right time in the sense of wrestling. What we've done last year and what we've learned and how we work together, creating this energy, this innovation, and we have to continue to keep that going. And I think we have the right leadership in place now. I think we have the right people that want to get involved now. And we need to continue to strengthen our position, not only in wrestling, but in the Olympic movement. Because at the end of the day, we're the oldest sport in the Olympic movement, and we need to have more people on the IOC board.
I was going to say, if that's our only calling card, we've lost, but we've determined, I think, that that is not our only calling card. We must talk about things that are positive about our sport. And I think one of the things you've done and done well has been able to communicate, to have that dialogue with world leaders everywhere. They're having meetings. There's Noel Thompson, the new Secretary General of Wrestling for the country of Jamaica. He has been selected as a candidate to run for the governing body, if you will, FILA. They're in charge of global governance, and I believe that Jamaica, from Kingston, you can make that difference. Now, in a typical political conversation, I would ask you these questions, and being in the great state of Iowa, we talk to political candidates seemingly every day. So
that's the man.
So what, if any, are your goals? What are your objectives? What is your platform as a candidate for this position?
There are a couple of things. One, we have to continue to make wrestling marketable. The marketability of our sport is the viability of our sport. We have to, as wrestlers, be able to get into all crevices and creases around the world. We need to continue to grow wrestling around the world. So part of me being Secretary General is understanding that in order to keep wrestling, you have to grow wrestling. So part of my vision of being on that board is to help create more Beat the Streets, more organizations that can continue to grow and develop wrestling in countries that need wrestling. And that part of that development is what I've learned last year by working closely with the women. I think, one part of the aspect of the sport is to continue to grow women's wrestling. Another aspect of the sport is to grow in underserved nations or Latin America or the Caribbean or Africa, etc. So I think it's very important to be able to strategically partner with the other established nations like Russia, Azerbaijan, United States to grow wrestling globally. The other thing wrestling always needs is more sponsorship, right? I think you want to be a big time sport, and you're thinking of FIFA World Cup. You have Nike, you have all these different sponsors that are involved in the sport. One of the things I've done a good job with USA Wrestling is I've brought in the largest corporate sponsors to USA Wrestling.
Being Muscle Farm, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
So we want to continue to do that globally. So one of my things is to do, and actually FILA now will be a Muscle Farm sponsor as well, but to continue to help get more wrestling money and capital into the sport. Because as there's more money that comes into the sport from a corporate level, it's going to help all those other nations that need the help, right, to continue to tell our story. We have to create, it's almost like in ancient Greece, you got to create pamphlets of what wrestling is about, what it is to be a wrestler, how human it is to be a wrestler, what are the monastic lifestyle you need to live to be a wrestler. So the world, wrestling is a religion, and you need to sponsor that. And I think that's one of the biggest things I want to do is, in terms of my impact, is the exposure through marketability and to bring those alliances, those natural alliances globally, so globally into FILA, which will eventually go to all the different countries around the world and help continue to grow wrestling around the world and develop wrestling from the beat the streets level to the development level to the Olympic level.
Is there a future for the idea, if we go back into what I call 60s and early 70s politics, where it was a real big deal for governors of different states, and I'll use Governor Bob Ray here in Iowa. We had a sister city in China, and it helped foster relations, almost a friendship force, if you will, but it helped foster relations between the two cities, the two states, the two countries. Is there a place for something like that where as wrestling develops in Jamaica, perhaps there would be a sister nation or a sister city or a sister program like USA Wrestling that could help put together these two teams and help grow wrestling in the state of Jamaica? Is that the country of Jamaica? Is that a possibility?
Absolutely. I think there are places in the United States. I think New York would be a natural fit, or Miami, because there's a great Jamaican population in New York and Miami. I even think, Belgrade, Serbia, Moscow would be interesting. They love the Jamaican culture there as well. The nation of Jamaica will continue to grow wrestling. We have 14 parishes that really have some of the best athletes known to man. I mean, if you look at the Cuban team and what kind of athletes they have and the success they have in wrestling, it's the exact same duplicate of folks for our Cuban and Jamaican are the same exact kind of people. So it's very exciting to know that wrestling could be as a reason to reduce crime, to create leaders in a nation that has such great history going back to colonial times with the British rule. It's the first place in the world to make and sell and incorporate rum globally. The first British colony to have a postal service railroad. So it's a very developed and rich tradition in athletics and in other stuff. So for me, luckily, the Stars gives me the opportunity to not only, participate in the United States, but really impact a nation where, kids who, are the typical inner city kid of New York that needs an escape and needs an opportunity. And wrestling gives opportunity. It gave opportunities to me, right? I was fortunate to move to Freeport, New York, and meet two legendary coaches, and I hopefully I could have the same impact on the kids that I come across in Jamaica, and sometimes it's just a little bit of exposure to give the kid the opportunity to say, hey, I could do that. I want to do that, and I want to be like that person and emulate that person, and to be that role model. And I think that's important, and I think the world needs to continue to have that. And as we continue to grow wrestling, we naturally would be the best role models for all sports in the world.
As natural as this decision may be, the selection process, the voting that'll take place in September at the World Championships in Uzbekistan, the process is the process, and it is. There are other people running for this position, and that are candidates for this position. There are 23 of them in total. 23 of the positions that are up for election at any point in time. And we wish you well. I think your past year and a half or more, dare I say even more, has really set a great grounding for you to go on and make the next decision. Do you have the support of your wife, of your son? Do you have the support of your family in pursuit of this? Because this is a ton more travel.
I tell you, I'm having a good time. I think you always give.
You're avoiding the question. Is Millie supporting?
Of course. So Millie and T3 are on board. T Thompson train continues to roll.
Yeah, I saw T3 in training for
Fencing or
the
chess.
fencing team, and
Yeah,
it looked dangerous.
he had a USA a fencing hat on. You know, it's funny. I just joined the board of trustees of the U.S. Olympic and Paralympic Foundation, and just really spreading my wings outside of wrestling and just learning and funding and sponsoring all sports in America now. It's such, you know, we're fortunate to have what we have, and you know, I could bring my son to go fence, to wrestle, to do judo, to do all these different things, and you know, more kids in the world need those opportunities. The world's a better place with sports, not without sports. So, you know, maybe that could solve, you know, if all the Royals' problems could be solved on the wrestling mat, I think it'd be a lot better for mankind.
What can the folks here in the United States do to assist you in in your ultimate goal to become a FILA board member? What can wrestling fans here in the United States do, and the folks in Jamaica do? What can they do to assist?
Well, I think, you know, Facebook, social media, just, you know, encouragement is always appropriate. I have a pretty good game plan of how to approach the field board. You know, obviously, you know, I'm an operator, so you know, I think very strategically of how the next couple months are going to go, and what events I'll attend, and what I will attend, and what I will not attend. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, this seat is more for wrestling. It's you know, it's great that I'm able to participate, you know, through Jamaica to help the sport of wrestling, and you know, it's twofold for me. I get to help a nation that really needs wrestling, right? And I also help to give innovative ideas to global governance, and you know, that, you know, alone is me fulfilling my fiduciary duties to what wrestling gave to me, and I think that's how it starts. I don't think it has to be an altruistic, selfish thing. To when you pursue opportunities like this, because you know, just like my participation on the Hall of Fame board, it's the preservation of history, right? To inspiring future generations. I think when you really believe in what you're doing and what you're about and what these organizations are about, you know, people make titles don't make people. So it's really irrelevant what you are. The wrestling coach, you know, in California, Ohio, is just as impactful as the FILA Bureau member. I think, you know, it's the people. It's all about the people, and that base of that love is where this stems from.
And the opportunity to affect the future of the kids in the land of your birth. I don't think that's altruistic at all. I think that's an outstanding opportunity at the very base of it all. And I know where your heart is. Noel Thompson, I appreciate you taking the time today. I know you're a busy man. You've given me more than I asked for, time-wise, and I appreciate that. My best to your family. Best of luck. Keep us posted if you would. Keep us posted if you would on the goal of becoming a new FILA board member. I think it's an outstanding opportunity for wrestling, but for the people of Jamaica and for the greater good of the sport. I thank you very much and wish you the best.
Thank you very much, Scott.